Okay, so I figured I'd do one up here real quick. We'll keep it going. We will keep it going here inside the lab. The dangerous noodle facility, molten stone glass dragon, the marshmallow kicking it up, burning rock. Spotting fake IDs, spotting mud gremlins and squeaky anywhere's around because you got to have a good sense of awareness. And it takes a little bit to build that in the machine before you know what's squeaky. The screw bolt's doing this when you walk past it, and you're like, oh, well, normally it does this, and that's fine. And, to be in the it's just looking at you doing this, but now today it's doing this.
On today's video, we're going to talk about the 3 different types of fake IDs that are out there that you need to be paying attention to.
It's like
starting right now.
So doing the marshmallow incident reports, I'm thinking about my night books over at the Quick Way there, the Marabitos, as it were. And I'm cashing out, doing my marshmallow review, liquidating what I got out of it.
Here at Bouncer Tips, we talk about
it should have come in on the ID review. I certainly hope it does now. That's what it is, along with everything else on the moo tag for whose cattle on what farm you're stealing from.
Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell to get updates of future content.
At any rate,
it's going to be a quick video on the 3 different types of fake IDs that are commonly out there that you need to be aware of and you need to know what to look for.
I did my night books, there's a couple of different versions of it, plus I did the till count. This is a calculator to make sure they write that down, because you do it for cash, but you don't do it for the petty cash. How many bills there were, because it would be different, it's just 600. So it's garbage, so you'd keep that in the night books on the cigarette till with the cash register all in one set, and you would Excel that thing on a printout to an 11 by 8 piece of paper that you could put down, and that's your manager tags.
Were very common several years ago.
It happens in sites all the time. Hey, I'll bring in Mike from Johnson and Rose, because they're usually still heavy hitters. They're going to survive it for the most part in that area, because the ID or numbers that work this way. What is that Saw's beepity beep MOS chip of getting a Sawyer to get to the thing to turn it to the paperwork? Bowser and Lou playing it for Princess Peach on the programs. Reading the Jaguar Saw program for the NPMPPT test, the policing standards. You got to stop here, stop, slam, safety, quality, quantity, under those incidents, because those are their own IDs by polarizing weight. When this idea trips the circuit and an Euler's number that we designed under gravity, a simplified field theory of general frames added together, they can do letters and numbers and do a bunch of NSA stuff, but for the most part, in just the Quickie Mart of the board factory, board at board factory, playing board factory. So you're making more 3-man units to describe somebody coming in, how to dust you off, square you off, make the most money on any of those incidences, or have the best zenith on an irrational system. There's no real number that I could know for you, but there's a bunch of standard models for everything. If you kind of go looking for information, most things are invented. There's math equations that'll help you just for this, but making your own version of that or variation on that can be very difficult comparatively to the most of the ground. So RE21, you look over it. You look like a Norwegian with a beard, but this thing says a number. What are the actions at spooky distances to your actions coming into the club or buying beer at the end of the night? For me, at the Squishy Mart guy that keeps track of the local moo cows, that says this guy's a local. I've seen their number. Even if it was expired under here, I know that they're within the legal limits of the legal precedence of administrative immunity, and nullifying a jury's case inside of a region, who's in charge and what laws are based on that system. And to avoid that, you keep a roster like your night books, just with different names. There's the big book of IDs, right? Here's the problem about every year. There's one form that just does once a year. I check with the guys. I make a phone call from corporate just over the phone in the middle of their shift over the cameras, because I can look in, or you have to be able to set that stuff up. And then from there,
separate from the background.
Home backyard video cameras have that system.
Microprinting seems to be a big
You
issue
know,
with
there's
a lot of these manufacturers.
$300, and you can make
exactly
managers use
That's
this
why
for
you
the
need that
Excel stuff
magnifying
instead of
glass
what
to
the
help
other
you out.
managers
And the
have to
third
do
most common
from
thing is
the
laser
corporate
cut
computer in the
engraving.
office
A
or
lot
in the
of
back room.
manufacturers are
And
able
those
to
things can be
provide that.
easily
However,
Wi-Fi'd
you're gonna
nowadays
be
into
able to
certain
see that they're not
standards of
gonna be
what
able to
turns
do
into a
it
thing,
as precise
regardless if it was
as
the
what
board
the state or
factory.
federal government
Is it
going
worth
to be able to do.
$300 or
And you
cameras
need to
for
look at those
reviews on
areas.
incident
So
reports,
there's a little bit
overhead,
about the
clearing
second type
off
of fake
sites
ID
and
that you'll need to
systems,
be
training
aware of.
models,
The third
OSHA
type of fake ID
qualifications,
that's out there is the
certifications? Because
false
once it's in the
credential.
rabbit
And
trap,
the false credential is
OSHA
an
cleared
ID
it.
that is a
That's what
legitimate
it
ID.
was
It's one
for
that's
who was left in
manufactured by a
charge
government.
of that
The
law,
only thing is
that
it's
area,
somebody
that
else
site. Three
trying
hands
to
getting
pass
off the
that
loader
document off
or the back
as
of the
that
semi
person
or
that's
some
on
other
the
system like
document.
that.
This is a common
And
situation
so
in
you'd
a
be
lot of
handed that
college
ID
bars.
again and have a
Somebody's
passport or
had
a
their
military
older
ID that
sister
doesn't
or
scan or
friend that
does
looks very
scan from the
similar to
quantum
them.
operation
Those are
of
the type
beep
things where
at
somebody
the
will pass an
terminal
ID
for the
off to
cops in the
somebody else.
system of what's
You're gonna need
local
to
and
use
not
the ID
local in a
process
first
to
line
find these type
incident,
of
and you have to
IDs.
train off of
For
that
example,
incident in
you
that
really
system.
want to make sure that you're
The
honing
first
in
time you program
and
the lot,
looking
there's a
at
lot of
this area
information.
right
It has a
here
different
on somebody's face
file
to make
cabinet
sure
to
that
this is the
that
lotto
area
as it's
is
done now
clearly
that
the
that
person that's
Oilers
on
terminal
there.
has been
You're gonna
open
look for
for it
identifying features
through
on the
auctions of
document.
boxes with
For example, you're
boxes
gonna
and
look at
forbidden orders of the
teeth.
NP
You're gonna look
problem
at
there with
ears.
silicate
You're
chips.
gonna look at all the different things
At that point in
make up
time,
that picture
those
to
IDs
make
are
sure
again
that the
polarized.
features are on that ID
They're
and
photons
it's matching up
that are
with the right
polarized.
person.
Photons collide
Another
into
thing that you can
neutrons
do
that are
is you
just
can
two
quiz the
cells,
people
F1 plus
on some of the
F2,
information that's
make
out
minus
there.
F1.
For example,
Now,
what
it
I'll
can't be
typically
either of
do
those things
is
anymore
I'll
once
start
those
off
things
by
made a
looking
collision in the
for
fuzz,
some
and that would be
sort
the
of
bunny.
key
Now
on
that,
the ID.
that
For
bunny, it
example,
doesn't
I'll
seem
ask
like
what
it's
their
anything, but
address
it
is.
had the
I'll
same
ask them to
nature
give
as a
their address.
photon, had
As
the
soon as they're
same
done with that, I'll
negative
ask them what's
first
your date of
force
birth,
as having
and then I'll
being
switch
an
it up again
negative
and
electron
change it up
or a
just so that I
positron
keep them off
interjecting
balance.
momentum
And
that I
it's
liked,
not
if
them
not
and it's
just
not
in
the
any
legitimate
direction,
ID that they're
highly
presented,
enriched to those
it will throw them
standards
off a little bit
to
and hopefully
back
trip
it up.
them up enough
F1
to
plus
know that
F2
that's
equals
not the
minus
right
F1.
person on the ID.
And
So
that would
this
kind
was
of
just a
take
quick
down
little
everything
video
on the
that I
board
wanted
and
to put
hold
together,
out
and I
standard
wanted to
as
do
a
these more
photon.
consistently.
That
I
could
wanted
kind
to
of come
call
in, but
these
you can't
Wildcard
F1 plus
Wednesdays where I
F2
talk about
everything,
just a small
because
little topic,
then I'm talking about
something
F1,
that,
F2,
is
not a
just
lotto
something that is
terminal
food
or
for
an
thought.
big
It
book of
may
IDs or
involve
how to
everything in the
handle
bouncing community,
passports
just might
instead
be
of
random thoughts
IDs
that I
on
have
this
that are
terminal,
going on
because
that
in the
week.
beep
Make
beeps
sure
it
you hit
didn't
that
work at one
subscribe
time. The
button.
only thing you
Follow
had
me
to
on Twitter and
differentiate that
Instagram.
was a
If
beep.
you wanna
Here's a
learn more about
number,
the
here's a
nightlife
card,
security
and
industry,
an
click
IH
this link
Plank
right here,
Factory.
and you've just been taken
Next
beyond the
board
ropes.
has this
Have a
grade
great day,
on it,
everybody.
or that.